Such a pleasure having you, Chris. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. How have you been today?
I'm good, Gaurav. How have you been, man? Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very grateful to have this conversation with you and that I've met you.
Pleasure. God has been really kind. Universe has been extremely kind, loving every bit of it. And the moment you said yes for this conversation, I was like super excited. I said, let's dive deeper into a word which is very close to my heart, shukrana, and what you talk about, gratitude.
Mm. Yes, yes.
So, Chris, before we get deeper in this word, or if I may call, before we dig deeper in this universe of gratitude, would love to know more about you. So, why don't you share a flavor of life that Chris lived as a child?
Okay. I was very fortunate to be born into two really loving parents that wanted me there and showered me with love and I had at a very young age I just family was very important. And, um, I have an older sister and I don't know, memories of a young age. My dad was a physical education teacher. And, so when I started going to school, we were getting up around the same time. It's like we had to both go to school. And when it would snow, like we got bad weather and they would call off school, he would basically come into my room like it was a party celebration because we both were, he wasn't going to work and I wasn't going to school.
Yeah. That must be an
Yeah.
awesome experience, isn't it? Like today's a holiday, today's a holiday. Dad is shouting on one corner and the son is shouting on the other corner.
Yeah, it's like little micro surprises, right? That's one of my that's happy memories. And then my mom, before I was born, she was a English teacher, and she uh, she had my sister, and she really wanted to be able to be home and to raise her. So she put out, hope, and her prayer was that she could find a way to, to be home, to do something where she could be home and raise my sister. Um, and fortunately, after she put that out into the world and prayed for it, sometime thereafter, my father's on the golf course and he meets a man who completely changed our lives. My mom, the business that he recommended and my mom got into allowed her to stay home with my sister. And then I was born, allowed her to stay home with me and just have this. It's a gift. It's still a gift because even though she's passed away years ago, that business still brings money in. It still supports my father, and obviously it shines over to me. But it just her wanting to be there with us was this catalyst that completely changed her life, which in turn has affected my entire life. If you want to think about entrepreneurship and just being, the creative atmosphere of meeting people and just belief, I guess. So I was very fortunate that she was at home and she could, drive me to school or help me with schoolwork or go on field trips. And, I talk to people, I try to, that's a true blessing.
Yeah, yeah. Chris, thank you so much for sharing a part of your life. And I'm looking forward to this heart to heart conversation because I remember our last conversation and the way you opened up, the way you opened your heart was very, very touching for me. I could sense an authentic soul. I could sense a vulnerable being sitting in front of me and talking to my energies. And in that moment, something shifted in me. So I'm grateful for being who you are, Chris. Chris, I'm a firm believer that we all go through instances in our life that help us become who we are. And you have been an evangelist and talking about gratitude in the world. I'm just curious, how did you come up with this word gratitude in your life?
Thank you for asking. It's my utmost joy to share these stories. So thank you for giving me the space for it, Gaurav. So the beginnings of my gratitude journey, I like to start it was in 2013, in the fall of 2013. My birthday is December 30th, and it was sometime in September, October. I was listening to a podcast, actually the Adam Carolla show. And on this podcast, he said that basically he didn't celebrate his birthday. And he said that this was partially because of his parents, his family upbringing, but what he was really looking at was, he was saying that if you celebration of a birthday, if everyone gets to do it, it's almost like an appreciation trophy. So he was his in his thought process, he was saying, well, if you want to celebrate that day, why don't you make it about something else or someone else? So he wasn't saying don't honor the day, but he was saying, he was giving a little flavor to the norm. He's giving a different perspective on a birthday. So when I heard that, because my birthday was coming up and because I was present enough to hear it, right? Because I actually heard it, which is very important. I decided, my birthday's coming up. I didn't know at the time, but I was like, I'm going to do something for my mom. So, I had a little time to think about it. And on December 30th, those years, I was getting up really early, by 4 a.m. I got up and I essentially sat down and I wrote her what was a gratitude letter. And then I ended up putting it on her Facebook page because I wanted her to find it. So it was very important to me that I write this for her, but I wanted to surprise her and I wanted it to be public. It was very important that I could surprise her. And I was happy that it was public because there's no shame in my feelings in this letter about my mother. So, put that on there. I sent it and go about my morning, and I'm waiting to get my call from my parents because they're supposed to call, right? That's what your parents do on your birthday. They call and they sing you happy birthday. It's mid-morning, haven't got my call. So I give a little more time. I'm like, okay, so I decide, okay, I'm going to call my dad's cell phone. I'm not going to call my mom. I'm not going to call a home line. I'm not going to call. I want to talk to my dad. I don't want to talk to my mom until the surprise has been sprung, or however you want to put it. So, I get my dad on the phone and he wishes me happy birthday and I thank him. And then, I immediately pivot and go, has mom read the letter? And he said that she had, and that she needed time with it and that she couldn't talk to me. And just to allow people, again, a perspective into this, like when you hear things, and even sharing this now, it still blows me away. When you hear, she can't talk to you, these aren't words you would expect from somebody that you talked to the day before, or, at a very young age, had no problem kissing on the cheek, very vocal about, I love you. This isn't, that response to me you think a strange son.
And that
Right.
too on a special day like your birthday.
Right. Exactly. So I was really moved by that moment because I didn't expect it. And what I share for people because of that moment, it's like, writing a gratitude letter or sending a message or putting voice to recorder. There's no magic in doing that. There's nothing magical about that process. Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it, right? But the amazing thing is what can happen after you do it. When that gratitude connects, it creates a magical moment. That's what happens. See, it's the byproduct is you're creating a moment. And that's because you put that out in the world, that's so that moment I created was I sat down, was surprised at her computer and just basically was so emotional about it. She couldn't even talk to me. She could voice it to my father, but she, and this is 35 years of my life, like that's never happened. I could never make that happen. You know what I mean? You can't make stuff like that happen, but being honestly grateful, it can create the space for that kind of magic to happen. And I like to share with people just in this short little scenario, I told you, gratitude stacking all the time. It's like, we just got to look for it, man. You look for it, you're going to get excited. You're going to see it. You're going to understand it, right? So this little scenario to my little story, right? My little story, which is a microcosm of my story, right? I write a letter for my mom. That's one stack. I'm by myself. That's a memory. Stacks are all memories. They can all be about the same thing, but it's not. They're different because they're different memories. She has a stack, right? Because I made it public, my dad had a stack. My sister had a stack. It allowed, when you put stuff public, the stacks can go on forever to anywhere in the world. You don't even know, right? But then we got together and that was a stack, right? I mean, that created a moment too. And, speaking, I said this the other day, it's like when I have conversations in gratitude and I share the story, I go, that letter's stacking right now. It's still stacking, which is, you just, and that just totally bleeds into when you're kind or you're grateful, you're creating moments and memories. You don't know what's going to happen, but we just go out and create them because we know stuff happens and it feels good.
Yeah. And
it feels good.
This is like a dominoes effect, right? The moment you start it, you never know where all is going to impact, who all it's going to impact. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story and how it all started with you. I've got another question, but before I share that question, let me share an episode from my life how I came in terms with this term called Shukrana. This was few years back. My mom was making curd, what you call as yogurt. And the process goes like this: you have to have a half a teaspoon of curd already in the vessel or the container. And in that, you need to pour in warm milk. And then you have to keep that warm milk for some time. And then slowly and steadily, it will start to freeze. And then you put it in the refrigerator. And then you will get the curd. It's a very simple process, no rocket science. Now, while the process was on, my mom was reciting Waheguru, 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 Waheguru. She was reciting her God's name. I was just looking at her and I was very curious. I said, Mom, what are you up to? Why are you doing that? Such a simple process. Why do you need to bother God in this process? And she looked at me and she said, You know what, Gaurav? The process seems very simple. But at the end of the day, I don't want to live with this thought or this assumption that this has happened because of me.
Hmm.
Every moment, I would like to express my gratitude to the creator of this curd. And never in my life I've seen my mom complaining for anything. And as I was telling you, Chris, that she's going through some really tough times physically, not even once I've seen her complaining, even if she's in excruciating pain, which is so visible on her face. And she would say, Shukar hai, bahut bahut shukar hai, bahut bahut shukar hai. It's like expressing the deep gratitude every moment. That one moment, that one episode of my life gave me the learning for the lifetime that how to live a life. Because before that, I was struggling, I was chasing one thing over the other, and that one episode shifted everything for me. And I'm so looking forward to get deeper into this whole universe of gratitude. And before we get there, let's talk about this, Chris. Chris, what is gratitude for you?
Gratitude is the lens I want to see every moment of my life.
Hmm.
It is learning to appreciate what's in front of you. It allows me to love myself and be okay with whatever happens. I think it has taught me that the most important place to be in the world is right here, right now, and to appreciate the fact that I get to do it. It it's really taught me even lately because I've been talking about this for years, man. Like gratitude is all in our memories, right? It's all in remembering. I'm really big about this now. It's all in remembering
Hmm.
because, and that's where it comes down to. It's like when I hear people share stories, right? Like you did. Okay, for example, you just shared a beautiful story, and I love that story with your mom, right? But think about this: what if you weren't present to hear it? So you were in the room. We go back to being present, right? You were present enough to be there, to hear that, to collect a memory that you've never forgotten. And it was in that, and that's where our gratitude is lying in our memory. So as long as you, the more we can be present, right? Being here, not worrying about tomorrow, not worrying about yesterday, or our problems, or being caught in our head about, what I mean. Like as long as we're going to collect memories, and those memories are what we're grateful for. That's where you find your gratitude is in, but you have to be present. That's the thing, right? That's why it's like gratitude is found in the now. Busyness is the enemy of gratitude. I really feel like it is. When you're rushing around, you're in a hurry, you miss a lot of things, right? All the details. And it's funny. I've never shared this. Like my wife will say, you read that too quick because I'll miss something. You should give me a little bit of grief. And the truth of the matter is, when I'm reading things, I read real fast, but I miss little details. It's the
Hmm.
same thing with life, right? And those little details, like your mom sitting there to chant, right? That's a little detail, but it's huge. But you were present enough to actually hear it, right? Because you were present. I this last year, I was going through the K-1 visa process with my wife, and another thing that I've really dug into in the this last year is just appreciating the everyday stuff, because that's where the gold is, right here and now, right? So it's like my wife, before she got here, we did long distance for over 4 years. We did see each other. She did, we spent a lot of time together, but almost 4 years worth of days I was saying goodnight to her looking on a screen, right? And then she gets here and she's here. She's in the other room, right? I don't want to forget how much I wanted her to be here. That's what gratitude is too. It's like intentionally. So in the morning, I write RR, which is remember Rosio, and I just recite to myself, she left her whole life to be here with me. She traveled all this way. She's here, and I want you know what I mean. And what does that mean, right? It's a lot. But I
Yeah.
remind myself because I don't want to forget. I don't want to take it for granted, right? The thing is, when you remember these things, when stuff comes up, it's not as heavy. You know what I mean? When you have so much good stuff that you're reminding yourself, when other stuff happens, obviously you can be stressed, you can be upset, it can put you down, but it's not as heavy. It's
Hmm.
almost like you're starting at a negative weight. Like I like to recalibrate my morning, right? Let me just remind myself how good I got it. Let me appreciate how good I got it, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
something hits me today, I'm going to have already been calibrated. It's a massive hack. It's a gratitude hack.
Yeah. But isn't this interesting? It's like I read it somewhere. It says there's one place that you can always revisit, and that is this place and this breath. And what I'm listening is, Chris, that every moment we can make a choice, right? And that to choice of going back to the memory where we can pull the reasons to be sad about and get into that space of resentment and resignation, or to pick up those pearls that could help us, that could fill our heart with gratitude. Now, interestingly, I've come across people very easily they slip into the zone of resentment and they start to look at what is missing in their life rather than looking at what they already have. And because of which they screw up the good part of their life as well. What do you think? Why does that happen? And what piece of advice would you have for them?
You know, I got to interview a really amazing author named Hector Garcia, and he has this book called Itchy Go Itchy, and that's it. So he's a Spanish guy who's very famous in Japan because he's writing about Japanese culture. And Itchy Go Itchy is the phrase of the Japanese tea ceremonies. They say it when they sit down. It basically means this is special and unique. This will never happen again. And the reason I'm telling you that because I was fortunate enough to have him on my podcast, and I asked him, I said, how would you explain gratitude to a 10-year-old? I love that question because it allows us, let's dumb it down. That way we don't overthink it, right? Because gratitude should be simple. And I
Hmm.
love asking that question. I've always gotten good answers. I should keep asking and put a little book together with just those answers. But this is what he said to me, and I could tell he was totally thinking about it because he was sitting there like this, right? And he goes, gratitude to me, he said, it's when I'm thinking about one thing that's really upsetting me, one problem I'm having, right? And at that exact moment, when I realize there's 99 things going right, and I'm only focused on this one thing. And I had this image in my head of gratitude is basically when you decide to shift your focus from this one thing to the 99 things that are going right. And I love that image. And I don't know if that really helps your question. I guess your question, I would say the most important thing is to the individual, I'd go, do you agree that you get to decide what it all means and you get to choose you get to make a decision on what you want to focus on? Do you
Precisely.
have, yeah. So that, obviously our minds can go off any one moment and we can be lost in space, but do you at least agree that you get to choose what you focus on? So as soon as you realize that you're in a place, you get to make a decision. And it's like, I can't tell people what decision I can't make people make decisions. But the most important thing to me is like, if you say it's my decision to focus on this, and that's cool, right? I go, hey, if you want to sit in that trauma and that upsetness, I would just recommend putting a timestamp on it. Go, okay, for the next 5 minutes, I'm gonna dwell on this, but then I'm gonna shift over here. At least put a roadmap, or maybe say to you, today I'm just going to choose to just wallow in this, and that's fine because I'm not judging anybody, right? I just want people to know, if we can allow people to get to a space where they know they have a choice, because gratitude is a choice, and I'm really happy it's a choice. anybody can make that choice, then they understand that what they're focusing on, which is, it's not helping the situation at all. I mean, obviously, we could get into like, for example, my wife. I love my wife. I love her so much. She has such a heart, bigger heart than me. My dad's sick, and I was talking about, he was in Florida, and she's physically, like, her back hurts. Like, she gets in such a worried state, which she loves so much, is beautiful. But I'm sitting here, I don't worry about things that I don't have any control over.
Mm.
I don't. For the most part, I don't really. You know what I mean? And that's where I think a lot of our minds and like negativity and everything is us worrying about the past, worrying about the future, all these places of worry, which take us out of the moment. We can't enjoy life because we're worrying, because we're
Yeah.
stressed about things we have no control over.
Yeah. So would it be a fair assumption to make, Chris, that gratitude is a practiced trait and we all can practice to live from a space of gratitude? Is my understanding right?
You're completely right about that. And that's, my next book, The Mechanics of Gratitude. I go through the 5 stages of gratitude practice, because like, you got to crawl before you walk, you got to walk before you run, you got to run before you sprint. And gratitude practice is the exact same way. It is a practice.
Yeah.
It's intention practice. I think most people think of gratitude and they live in a reflexive state, and that's that
Yeah.
first segment of, like we talked about. It's like most people are taught good manners, which is saying thank you. And thank you is nice, but if it's reflexive and there's no emotion behind it, it's almost like it didn't happen. And the bottom line is that the way you want your connections to be? Is that the way you want your appreciation to be?
Yeah.
Reflexive. So it's completely a practice, bro. And my everything I do, I feel like everything bit, like even this talking right now, right? All this stuff that we're creating, I'm creating and creating here with you. These are all can be used in someone's gratitude practice. Because to me, it's like, just choose, make intentional, make it an intention, right? You decide what that is. It could be really simple, just be closing your eyes and breathing. I mean, honestly, like you said, the breath, right? Like, dude, geez, there's so much. When we're breathing, we're talking right now, there is so much happening in our bodies to make this happen. It's insane how many things are going right. I mean, I was reading, geez, what I read, but this guy's book's amazing. And he was just going through like how many miles the blood is circulating, and like how many beats what is it? 100,000 times a day our heart's beating. It's just, there's a lot to be grateful for if you look for it.
And what I'm listening is that gratitude is much more than just words called thank you. Because what I heard you saying is that one of the reflective way of expressing gratitude is saying thank you as a part of the manners that we have learned, right? But the second thing that you spoke about is the intentional, where we can put our intentions and then express, as you were talking about the blood which is um, running in our veins and the heartbeat and the heart that we have. So, is this the part of the mechanics of the gratitude that you were speaking about?
Yes, it is.
You said
It
it's a
totally
like
is.
it's a 5 process. What is
Yeah,
that?
it's
Curious.
5. Yeah, it's 5 stages. And yeah, so it's basically allowing people to, you calibrate at the beginning. I start with, reflexive, and I feel like, I think most people, what the image I like to give is that of an iceberg. I feel like most people think and see gratitude is that tip of the iceberg, that little place above the water. And that's where they think that's their gratitude. That's reflexive gratitude. That's somebody opens the door for you run in saying thank you. That's it's like the doctor hitting your knee and it's going up. It's all reflexive, but everything, honestly, all the magic, all the wonder, the appreciation of your life is below the water. And to go below the water, you gotta be intentional, right? I mean, getting into the pool is intentional. That's realizing, okay, I've been reflexive. I want to be intentional. So you go from this stagnant feeling to being intentional, and intentional gratitude is it's a simple step. Everything needs to be simple. It's a simple step, right? What's intentional? Again, just making a decision. I'm going to practice whatever it is. It could be very simply, okay, I'm just going to write down 5 things I'm grateful for.
Hmm.
Simple. It could take you 30 seconds. because I'm not asking you to dig deep and get emotional and cry. I'm not asking you to do that. And I wouldn't expect it. It's, the analogy in my book, I'm like, if I were to look at a baby and yell run, that's what that would mean, right? I would be a crazy one if I looked at somebody and expected them to fully encapsulate this idea. But we have to understand there's just like, an athlete learns how to do different things to get the speed and the strength. Like it's the same thing with gratitude. So it's that baby step going, okay, I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to write 5 things I'm grateful for, or I'm going to, like I said, we're going to take a walk and be meditative. I'm going to sit with my breath and just appreciate it. It's got to be simple. It's got to be simple, but that's intentional. And then after we get simple, intentional, the third stage is emotional, and that's where it really gets exciting. And that's where we draw on memories. So, for example, when you're writing down one thing you're grateful for, so if I say coffee, and I love to use the analogy of coffee because I really do love coffee, and I think people get this. If I say coffee, it's still stagnant. It is a step above reflexive because we're being intentional, but there's no emotion, right? It's just a word. But so that's why you go, why, right? Why why am I grateful for coffee, right? I'm really grateful for water. Let's just jump into water, right? Okay, well, without water, I'm not alive, and then I go to water, I go, geez, it flows into my home. It literally is pumped into my home at pennies on the gallon. If there's a deal in this life, like the best cost ratio, it's like water ratio to dollars, like you think about this, like without it, you can't live. And it's like, it is the best money you're going to spend. So even if you feel like the water company's expensive, they're really not. I say I'm grateful I get to pay that. But water. Okay, on top of that, there's somebody filtering that water. There's systems in place. There's pipes that have been laid. There's construction. There's people that have been working on different, coatings so you don't get poison, right? There's filters, like all this. It comes in here. It's hot and cold. You know what I mean? Like I cook with it. I make coffee with it. You bathe in it. You're brushing your teeth. You're using the restroom. I mean, that's just water. Okay, let's stream again. Coffee beans. These, I believe, are from I think these today I had were from I think they're Colombian. How about that? That's normal. But somebody I've been to the fields of Colombia, man. I've been in a coffee plantation. I know that's a big freaking job. But I'm saying these are emotions. You know what I mean? This is me just knowing that's happening. I don't know any of those people. I haven't gotten to the next step.
it's like going to the roots. It's going to the background. It's going to the operations. And in a very simple way, I can tell you that anything that we are doing, Chris, then the whole universe is actually conspiring for helping us to experience that moment, isn't it?
Yes, there is. This is the great thing about writing my first book is my editor, when I was talking about this idea, I call it gratitude squared, this whole idea of it's this one thing, but it's so much more. She pointed out to me because I wrote it wrong. She said, you understand, Chris, these are separate things you're grateful for. It's not that this is one whole thing. These are literally separate things. It's, she expanded my mind in this process. But I mean, yeah, everything you're doing in any given moment, it's like almost a parallel back to the body, really. We started with the body, but it's like even you and I sitting here, right? I mean, just the technology, how many things are working right now? How many millions of hours people spent and worked and like the stuff that's happening right now, the satellites in the air, right? I mean, geez, like all that, just so you and I can have a conversation right now.
Yeah.
I mean, let's bring some emotionality, like realize that the coffee is not just the coffee is everything. It's like you're saying, right? I liked your idea, the universe. It's like, it's everything. This moment is everything.
Yeah, it's like this conversation now. It's very easy for us to get onto a Zoom call and have this conversation, but this technology was not at all available 15 years back, 20 years back, 30 years back, right? And it's not only the Zoom technology; it's the creator of the computer who actually started this all movement for all of us.
Let's appreciate the moment, man, because there's so much working.
So you said the first stage is reflexive, which is that comes as a part of the reactive behavior when somebody does something for us and we say thank you as a part of the manner. The second one is intentional, where consciously say write down 5 things that you're grateful for today, right? The third one you spoke about is emotional gratitude. Which are the fourth and the fifth ones?
For sure, man. So 4 is where it really gets, I feel like it supercharges. So it's relational gratitude. So before, with emotional, I was speaking about ideas, people I didn't know, objects, right? We were talking about like the coffee cup, the cup of coffee, right? So I was getting excited about all these things that I appreciate that. But now when we go to relational, I feel like it's a 10x because now it's your story. And when I say that, I mean, it's very simply, if
Hmm.
you're in a state of being grateful, if you're sitting across from somebody, like for example, we're here together and I'm appreciating this moment, I can look back and go, what had to happen in my life for Gaurav and I to be speaking right now? What moments am I going to remember, right? What grateful moments? Because again, without those moments, I'm not here appreciating this moment with you, right? It's like you got to have, the road had to be taken. For example, my mom, it was 2 years before I was born. She had a miscarriage because my parents wanted to have two kids. They had my sister and they wanted to have a boy. And my mom, um, had the child came early and was probably on incubator for about a day and then passed away. And I'm only sharing that because, you know, they still wanted to have a kid. So because of that experience, which was really traumatic, when they had me, the new doctor just made the decision that they needed to sew her up so that I wouldn't come early. I reflect and go, my mom put stitches in her body before I was born. That's how much she wanted me to be here. But that's but I mean, I'm going way back there. So anyways, we're just going to you and I, like, I think you and I are sitting here. I think about, obviously she had to pass away. I had to write that letter. She had to pass away from cancer. Everything had to happen the way it is. I had to continue digging in, trying to connect with people. And eventually a lot of grateful moments, any moment in your life, any moment, wherever you are, you could do that. And it's very easy to get excited because life feels magical when you can sit in a moment of gratitude and look back and go, I had to go through all the good and the bad to be here now. And I'm grateful that I'm here.
To become the
So it's
person that who I have become and the kind of people that I've been able to attract in my life.
right. Right.
Wow. Wow. As I'm just listening to you, I could actually see all the teachers who have contributed to my life, right? There was a time I could not speak properly. And here is this teacher who came to my life. And
Mhm.
at that point in time, I was in third standard and I had some speech challenges. She helped me to get over that. If not for her, I would not have been where I am,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Or if I look at my mother, if I look at my sister, if I look at my childhood buddies, I remember how my school friends, including Amit, Sanket, and Huda, how they came together to fund me when I wanted to get into the space of leadership development and coaching. And I remember my conversation with Amit where he said, "You are like an IPO to me. I can encash you anytime. Take this blank check, go ahead and do what you want to do." And that was a moment when I started to trust myself, and I continued to walk in that path because I did not want to let him down for all the trust that he imposed onto me. So that's what you call as relational gratitude.
Yep. It's appreciating those
Wow.
moments. I mean, I even wrote recently thinking, how do I know my best friend right now after, it's specifically because of my parents' beliefs at the time that they went to a certain church where I met this kid, right? Like in a certain town. Think about it. They had to live in that town. Obviously, they had to live in a certain neighborhood. Somebody had to share this church with them. They had to decide to go all these little steps, 30 something years ago. And that's the only reason I have my best friend Corey is because of my parents' choices and their beliefs from decades ago,
Hmm,
right? Those
hmm.
little things. But you got to appreciate it because it's, again, any relationship in your life, if you're sitting next to somebody you care about them, there's a lot that had to happen for you. I mean, it's relational gratitude will allow you to appreciate the life you have. It'll allow you to, like I said, you could go, everything makes sense because A, B, C. But I go, when you look at this, I go, life feels magical. It feels like,
Yeah.
you look at it's like, that's how I want to live a life where I feel like life is magical. I think meeting people, especially, I mean, this moment, for example, the fact that you're in India, I'm here, we know each other. It's only because of the time we're in, us being present, the people we know. It's magical. It really is.
But Chris, isn't this so beautiful? Because as per your definition, everything that's happening in my life is worth appreciating.
Yes,
Hmm.
because you're here now. And without them, like you said, no, there's definitely people. you can, yeah, that's again, you get to decide what it all means. You could just say everything's a lesson or a gift. I love that image too. Like either right now I'm getting taught something or I'm being given something, right? Like, and that's what, yeah, I think, yeah, the good and the bad leads to where you are. Again, if you appreciate your life, you're grateful, you're going to see how it led you there and you're going to appreciate it happened.
Yeah, Chris, this is really interesting because today, and when I look back, it's easy for me to be grateful for all those people who abandoned me or who kicked me or who gave me feedback that I did not appreciate them. But the question is, when something is happening to me, which I'm not appreciative of in that moment, how can I have that gratitude mindset in that moment?
Okay, so basically, we go around labeling everything, putting labels on everything when it comes down to people and every situation in our life, right? We label it. So the question is, could you? What I like to tell people, what I'm doing my best to stay in a grateful state, is I go back on that image I was sharing about. What if everything that's going on in your life is either a lesson or a gift? What if we only had two labels? What if you could only have two labels, lesson or gift? So either obviously you know in the moment you can feel a gift.
Hmm.
When stuff is pushing up against you, what if you just sat there and you were like, okay, this is a lesson, because we know that lessons, if we can learn them, they're gifts. So what if we didn't label this as bad or terrible or terror? Again, we get to decide what it all means. So in the moment, you could say it's, you get to decide how you want to react to it. You can go, I'm going to find in a moment and you're being dug into, you go, I'm going to find something good out of this. Eventually I know something, I'm going to find, I give a scenario. It's almost like in life, sometimes the car just breaks down. It's not your fault. You're out of control. It stops. Question is that moment, what do you want to do? Now we have choices, right? Either we can sit in the car forever. Some people do, right? They have bad things happen and they never move ever again. And that's a choice. It's a choice. Or you go, okay, well, I'm going to go get some food. So they move around. We decide we're going to get shift a little bit. Or go, okay, I'm going to go find a mechanic because I want to keep moving forward. Just remember that any moment is just a moment. It's not your life. Don't let a moment ruin your life. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, again, back to we have so much good going on. Don't let this moment of somebody digging into you, this upset moment, just realize, it's all perspective. So if you, again, wake up for the day, something happens, it's all about perspective. Is this as bad as I'm making it? How do I want to label this? If you don't, for example, if you don't get the job, could you look at going, well, I did the best I could. That's okay. That means I'm supposed to be somewhere else. That means I'm going to keep looking. You know what I
hmm,
mean? Like,
hmm, hmm.
with relationships, same thing. Okay, I thought this was the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, but it wasn't meant to be. That's okay. That just means that I'm available to go experience something else, right? Like, it's not, unfortunately, the mind goes to, oh, I'm worthless. I'll never find love again.
Yeah,
Or I'm
yeah,
never going to get a job. I'm never going to be able to put food on the table. And honestly, and I know you know this, that mindset will make that happen. You are
absolutely. You're going
adding
to
votes.
manifest that.
You're voting towards that happening. So let's put some votes the other way. It's like every habit we do, everything we say is a vote. So as long as we know our mind's saying these things and they get a vote, let's do our best to flip it and just go, this is just temporary. This means something else is going to happen.
Beautiful. It says whatever is going on in your mind, you're going to manifest that. So in that moment, either you can manifest a life that you're going to be appreciative of in years to come, or you can manifest a life that would become a reason to be more resentful about in your life. So
Building more memories of resentment, actually, what you're doing there is your memory is that memory.
yeah, absolutely. So coming back to the mechanics of the gratitude you were speaking about, the first stage is reflexive, second one is intentional, third one is emotional gratitude, fourth one is relational gratitude, and you spoke about there are five stages to the mechanics of gratitude. What is the fifth one?
The fifth one is basically where I've been living my life for the last 6 years. So it's the term I've put together is catalyzing gratitude. So it's when you decide you want to be a catalyst for gratitude. So, the cool thing about the book Dear Gratitude that I released is I like to think of gratitude as like a bee. So it's like, what if gratitude was your friend? You want to assist your friend living in the world. like places you go, you want gratitude to exist. So at that moment, you go, I understand what gratitude means to me. I know what it gives to my life. And this is, it's almost like the thing where, really wealthy people at some point they go, hey, I just need to start giving this away, right? Like I've got enough of it. I can give it away. So it's like with gratitude, it's a very similar idea, except that gratitude is, you can never have, it goes on forever, right? We build it in everything we do. So it's like, as soon as you can live in a state of gratitude, you can then look out on the world and find and build scenarios that actually reinforce the memories that we're building up of gratitude. So the cool thing about being a catalyst for gratitude is like, my initial thing when I started my website, it's like, I just asked people, write letters on your birthday to people you love in your life, right? And they did. People started sending me letters and I shared those. And that moment that I had, the first letter that came in, I built this website. And when I read Kate's letter, this letter of gratitude, and I got down to the end of it, and I'm sitting there at this monastery by myself in a bunk. I was crying. I was just crying, Gaurav. I was just sitting there crying. And and it was the weirdest thing because I didn't know why I was crying. It was a whole new emotion. And I had to go through a checklist, right? I had to go, what's going on in my body? Because this is new. So I went through a checklist. I was like, well, I'm not crying because I know Kate. I'm not crying because she's a beautiful person. I'm not crying because it's written well. I'm not crying. What hit me changed my entire life. And this is a big pillar, this idea, this fifth step. What hit me was this beautiful letter that Kate wrote, which is in this book, is online, exists as part of my story, solely exists. The only reason it exists is because I asked her to write it. It's the only reason it exists. And changed my life, brother. Changed my life forever because all I did, I like to think of myself as a gratitude conductor. All I did, other than that, I like the analogy of the orchestra. I wasn't there when Kate decided she wanted to play the instrument. I wasn't there when she went and bought the instrument. I wasn't there when she was practicing. I wasn't there, when she joined the band. But you know what? She got in front of me, brother, and I got to do this. And the song she played changed my life. And that's the power of opening up space for people to share what they're grateful for.
And that's what you call as the catalyst of gratitude.
Yes, it's this sharing, it's opening up space and for people to find their gratitude, to be able to express their gratitude.
Now, I'm just curious. 3 times you use the word that it changed me, it changed me, it changed me. Just curious, Chris, in that moment when you had tears rolling down your cheek while you were reading that letter of gratitude, what shifted for you that you are appreciative of today as well?
I realized that the connection in the moment that I created with my mother when I wrote a letter and connected with her, and my little nugget of an idea, which was, what if I could inspire people to do this? I had no idea what that was going to do to me. I just knew that it was good. And when I read that letter and I felt that emotion and I realized mechanically what happened, what was going on behind the scenes, right? Because if you tell the story and I just say she wrote a letter because I asked her to write it, that's almost like saying the coffee cup. But when you see it to this day, it's what I get up and I do. That's why I love this conversation so much. It's because we're talking, creating moments for memories and gratitude. You're allowing me to share my passion. I know that when we talk about gratitude, we're filling each other's cups up. And I know that the amazing thing about technology right now is the cool thing is you're going to put this on the wall and share it. And I'm going to put it on my wall and it'll be put on a wall. And the cool thing is at that point, that's like I call gratitude art. It's all I do all day long. I help create it, smack it on the wall, and I just let it do what it's going to do. Because you know what? We have this memory now, these moments, good feelings. I'm getting more out of it. I know that I can almost I'm literally creating more gratitude in my life with people that I interact with. Group moments, right? Because you can't do this step you could not do by yourself. Specifically, your intention now is, I'm going to go out, create space for gratitude to exist because it's going to be good for me. It's going to be good for them. And I know what happens when these spaces are created. They create more spaces. In my life in this moment, I'm just a guy, like I'm walking down the stream, I'm picking up pebbles and I'm just skipping and going, what is the easiest way that Chris, with the time he has in his life, can skip this rock that open up the most space for gratitude to exist? because I can't, and I will never tell somebody what to be grateful for because that's toxic gratitude, and I'm never going to be a part of toxic gratitude. But I can lovingly create spaces for others to
Mm.
come into, to find and realize what's going right for them, help them shift that perspective, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At the same time, Chris, I come across people who believe in gratitude, and yet I've observed them living from a space of resentment and experiencing pain and hurt and anger moment by moment.
Hmm.
How do you look at those people? And what's a piece of advice that you would have for them?
If somebody gets gratitude and they get the appreciation and they're going through, geez, I would go back to, do the people understand they have a choice on what they want to focus on? So we go back on, do they realize they have a choice? And if they realize they have a choice and they understand gratitude, I know with myself,
Yeah,
again, like it's that recalibration. So are you recalibrating that, you've got a lot of stuff that's going good for you. You have a lot you're appreciating, because everything is almost like a scale. You want to put it on a scale, right? If I'm living in a negative state, when we add one more thing, it's just like this. But that whole idea of recalibration and intention is I'm reminding myself every day that I got a lot to be grateful for. So when something of weight hits here, I do it so much where it would take a lot, brother, to do
yeah.
this.
Let me bring a twist in the question. Um, if you could recall a moment in your life where you felt disgusted, where you felt defeated, where you felt a sense of loss, failure, I'm sure you would have come across these kind of situations. How did you manage to recalibrate yourself and bring in gratitude in that very moment?
After going to a couple different countries, on this, so I found out I had something called hypermania, which I know we get the technical thing, but it's hypermania and manifest destination destiny, which was part of which used to be part of my gratitude story. Like I had to make this happen. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna make it happen, right? It's gonna happen. I'm gonna make it happen. And having this hypermania was is a very dangerous cocktail. Um, and I can say that 6 months later, I was living in the nicest place I've ever lived, waking up to paradise, a beach, seeing the sunrise, seeing the sunset. After ups and downs, there I was. I remember I got this place I shouldn't have gotten. My dad helped me get it. And I remember looking out and going, how long is it going to be before I take this for granted? You know how long it was, man? It was like less than 2 months.
Hmm.
I ended up being, the grateful guy, this gratitude guy, living in a depressive state in the prettiest place I've ever been in my life.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, when all that came down, what allowed me to still appreciate life is I knew that I wasn't hopeless. I knew my father, I knew there were people in my life that even if I went bankrupt, which that was the second time in my life I've had this happen, I knew that I was going to be okay. I knew that I had love in my life.
Hmm.
And 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 even though it was very dark, I kept, I never gave up on this mission, but I learned a lot through that massive what happened to me. I learned a lot, and it allowed me to come back with a complete, fresh, healthy way to pursue gratitude, to pursue this. So the way to say that is, I made a decision a year and a half ago when I started the podcast and writing these books and everything. I made a decision. I was like, I'm going to continue to create these spaces, be creative, and do it as much as the universe will allow me to do it. The great thing about the book is the book was like, so all I want to do is initiate people into a space, right? The book initiated over 50 people to write in gratitude. The book existing does what I want to do, even if nobody ever read it. All I want to do is create the space, and I'm going to continue to create the space as much as I can with the time I have. I understand how this works. It's giving me more things to be grateful for. It's connecting with individuals. I'm creating moments in my life, and I love it. And I'm going to do as much as I can. But I'll tell you what, I would never set myself up for failure like that again. I like
Yeah.
to tell people you can't control the world, so you should never, case in point, don't write a book and say that it's got to sell 1 million copies, because what happens is when it doesn't, because there's a very small fraction of a percent of books that do, you know what you've done? You're a failure. You failed because you decided. The goal should be, I have a physical book. You know what I mean? The goal should be the product. The goal should be the conversation. The goal should be the artwork, not if anybody accepts it, because you can't control that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rest your goals on yourself.
I just love it what you said, starting from you could be living in a paradise and yet be depressed, depending upon the choice that you're making in the moment, right? And also what you shared, Chris, that's so beautiful, is every moment when we are taking things for granted, we are moving away from gratitude. And every moment when we are moving away from gratitude, we are moving towards a state that we are not fulfilled, that we are not happy about. Here is a question for all our audience right now. What are those moments? Who are those people? What are those situations? What are those things that you have started to take for granted, which are taking you away from gratitude and thus are taking you away from happiness?
The more we realize, we're caught in a thought process that's not healthy. It's not constructive. It's just dwelling, and it's realize we're not here. I'm not appreciating my wife sitting next to me, or I'm not here. I am on the couch, right? We're watching a movie, and I'm thinking about those here. But this is, it's taking, these things that that aren't healthy. It's not helping. Is can taking me out of the present moment. So the more we realize that we're in that state of worry, we're in that state of fear, we're caught up in a moment. We're caught up in a moment that's not healthy. It's not a happy moment. It's taking us away from being in the moment where everything is. I think that with me, it's just it's all about how often you do it to get back. It's all about what can bring us back to here.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we go, okay, we're here, I don't have to think about, I don't have to think about that over there because I'm here. It's not worrying about it. I know worrying about it's not helping. That's not constructive. Constructive is, okay, this happened. So, okay, tomorrow I will do this. Or this happened, I'm going to make a phone call. No, that's constructive. But most time it's like, okay, now it's living here. And now I'm not enjoying anything I'm doing. I remember I was on vacation with my wife and my dad last month. Enjoying my vacation. I get a call from the owner of the condo that lives below the place that I rent. And they're like, I'm calling because my brother, he lives downstairs, and there's a hole in the ceiling. And there's water on the roof in his bathroom. And it just completely sucked me out of my paradise with my dad and my wife, because I was like, phew. But the reality of the situation is, obviously, I have to call my tenant. I'm going to have to fix it. That's the reality, right? It should be okay. Well, some conversation is going to be had. It's what it is. Money may be lost. It's what it is. I'm in Florida, though. I can't do it right now. Okay, let's be here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it should just be that, but it's not, right? Okay, well, what can I do right now about it? Okay, I've done that. Let's appreciate where we are. Let's step back into our now, which should be our paradise, the moment. And that's on our schedule. We'll do it, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not perfect, but if I was going to give a framework, it's like how much quicker can we get to that progress? It's like how much quicker can we move on to be present? Because these are the moments, right? This is all there is, man. Like, we're not promised tomorrow. I like to think the future is just an idea. If you're thinking about the future, you're not now. And when the future arrives now, you're still not going to be there. The past is gone. You can't change it.
Yeah. So what I'm just trying to understand, what are the different practices that could help me to live from a space of gratitude, to live from a space of shukrana? One practice is to be in this moment, right? Practice living this moment. Every time you notice that your mind is wandering, as I mentioned, the place that you can always revisit is this moment, this breath. That's one. Second is, the mind would always go back to your memories. Make a conscious choice that if you're picking up the pearls from the past or the garbage from the past, based on which you're going to experience what you're going to experience, what are the other practices, if you were to share, that could allow people to live from a space of gratitude?
Part of my practice this actually since last year, actually, with everything that's going on in the world, I initially added the word health to my practice, and it started really small initially. I would just say the word health, and I would then just say the people's names in my life that I love, right, that are very important to me. So I think originally it was like dad, Rosio, that's my wife now, my grandmother, my sister. I think, and maybe I said Corey at the time. So maybe I started really small. I just said health because I wanted to remind myself that that there's a lot of people that love me that I love, and just the fact that they're moving around and that they're present is a gift. I don't want to. It's a massive gift, and since then, I don't know, there's 20, I think 20 something people, but if you want to get into a state of gratitude, it's simple. If you think about the people you love in your life, you could just say health. I just say health. And you know what? Like my dad being sick the last couple of weeks, I still said it. I still thought about it. I just thought about it a little bit more. But I think I really love that practice of in the morning visualizing and saying the people's names or right. I would say either visualize, say their names, write them down, just make something where you take a moment to appreciate these people. And it could just start with 4 people. The most important memories in your life are not when you're alone, they're when you're with people. The magic is happening when we get to connect with others. That's where it is. So it's like, I like this practice of just saying, like I said, writing the word health, I put ... and then I just say these people's names in my head. That's one. I think, you know, when you're with people, and this is a hard practice too, it's like, again, just how can you remind yourself that this is everything we're doing is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It is. It's special. I'm here with these people. Here I am. I'm going to be here. This is work. I'm going to be here. I'm going to enjoy this the best I can, but I'm going to be present. I'm going to have conversations. I'm going to remember. I'm going to, take pictures in my mind. It's just appreciating where you are. But to me, it's more, how do you trigger yourself to appreciate the moment you're in, right? Because again, we had to collect the memories, and the only way we have the memories are if we're present to the moment. For example, you just never know the last time you're going to see somebody. You never know it. And I don't think it's a bad thing to think that. I don't think it is. The more we can sit in that moment with somebody, we're going to feel that moment. They're going to feel it, and there's going to be love there. And I think it's a healthy thing. I don't think there's anything like it. When you get to spend time with people you love, when we get to share time together, this is our most valued commodity we have in our entire lives. Never have more of it. They're not making more of it for us. It's, you know what I mean? We're only going to live for that certain amount of time. And we decided to spend time with somebody. Let's spend time with somebody. Let's be there, right? Because they're giving us their attention. Here we are. This is special. When you're with somebody, I don't know, that maybe that's the click. You should go, you know what? Time is the most valuable thing I have. It's their most valuable thing. I'm going to do my best to respect that they're here with me and do my best to appreciate this moment and be here for it. And I think, I know you love your parents, and we were speaking about health stuff. It's like, unfortunately, it took my mom passing away from cancer for me to really learn that lesson about appreciating people in your life. I'm a single parent child now. You know what I mean? I look at things differently. I look at my dad differently. It is different. We are closer because of what we went through and the love for my mother. I look at, even if there's people in your life, another great way, if there's things that are bugging you, like if there's, for example, I remember sharing the story, my dad, he'll tell a story and I'll hear it a million times. And when I hear it, you're a child, you're like, sometimes it just kind of irritates you because you've heard it a million times. But the mindset should be this: one day, you're going to miss hearing the story. So why don't you just go ahead and enjoy it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Chris. I think great sharing, great reflections, great insights. And thank you so much for being so generous in your sharing. I think what I'm taking away from this conversation is, as you mentioned, that whatever we are doing right now is a lifetime opportunity. What a beautiful statement to live your life from. What a beautiful statement. And I think this would not have been possible without you sharing from your heart. without you taking this conversation as once in a lifetime opportunity. So, at the core of my heart, let me just express my shukrana to you, deep gratitude, and thank you so much for being in this conversation with me.
Thank you, Gaurav. I really appreciate you having this conversation and sharing with me. And I know we only had a moment here, but I have this vision that somebody shared with me, that the literary gratitude shelf in Hindi is empty. And I'm planning on filling it up. So thank you so much, Gaurav. I really appreciate your time today and for you sharing and allowing me to share.
Thank you so much, Chris, and look forward to interact with you again.